Ironbond Chapter 1. The days aboard the Eidolon Drift settled into a slow, repetitive rhythm, the kind that only came from deep space travel. No alarms, no evasive maneuvers. Just the distant hum of the engines and the artificial sunlight cycling through another simulated morning. For most ships, it was dead time. For Captain Yarrick Holt, it was when things got complicated. Inside the tactical training bay, photon rounds cracked against holographic bulkheads in sharp, echoing bursts. Targets popped in and out of existence, rearranging themselves with each cleared zone. Yarrick moved forward with practiced efficiency, rifle braced tight against his shoulder, boots steady on the deck. "Left corridor," he called. A half-second later, a hesitation. "I see it," Laren replied, but he didn't move. Yarrick swore under his breath. "Advance now." Laren's hesitation cost him exactly 1 second. A simulated fragmentation device bounced once, twice, then detonated inches from his helmet. The training rig cut instantly. Silence slammed down on the room. Laren ripped the helmet off and hurled it across the floor. It clattered uselessly against the wall as he dropped onto a bench, breathing hard. "Again," he said bitterly. "I died again." Yarrick disconnected from the rig and walked over, slow and measured. "You didn't die because the enemy was better," he said calmly. "You died because you stopped trusting your partner." Laren laughed without humor. "Easy for you to say." Yarrick crouched, so they were eye level. "No, it isn't." That shut him up. "Why do you think I gave that order?" Yarrick continued. "So you could test me?" Laren snapped. "No." Yarrick's voice was controlled but tight around the edges. "Because from the moment you hesitated, I saw the grenade carrier shift position." "You didn't. You were watching the wrong threat." Laren looked away, jaw clenched. "You don't survive assaults alone," Yarrick said. "It doesn't matter how skilled you are. You either operate as a unit, or you become a casualty." Laren stood abruptly. "Why do you even care? We're cargo to you." "You're getting paid either way." The words landed harder than the grenade ever had. Yarrick stood slowly. "You're right," he said. Laren's shoulders slumped slightly. "You are a job," Yarrick continued, voice low. "But you're not a thing. And I don't train people I expect to die." Silence stretched between them. Finally, Laren nodded once. "Again." Yarrick allowed himself a small breath of relief. "Again." Across the ship, the flight simulation bay hummed with artificial stars. Pilot Cadet Rin floated through a debris field, thrusters flaring in short bursts as he weaved between tumbling asteroids. His craft twisted elegantly, but he wasn't watching his surroundings. "Crix," a calm voice warned. "You're drifting," Rin waved it off. "Sims are slower than real combat." A warning klaxon blared. 3 hostile drones lit up his HUD. Rin cursed and dove, skimming debris too tightly. Plasma bolts tore through his shields. 1 drone cut his escape vector clean. The simulation ended with a bright white flash. Crix removed her helmet slowly, unimpressed. "You wanted realism," she said. "Now you're dead." "That wasn't fair," Rin protested. "You pulled back." "No," she replied. "I adapted." "You expected backup instead of creating an opening." He exhaled sharply, but didn't argue further. "Reset," she said. "You'll lead this time." In the habitation ring, the atmosphere was different. For the first time since their capture, the Valen family moved freely between compartments under quiet observation. Meals were communal now, their restraints long since removed. Captain Yarrick hadn't ordered kindness. He had ordered decency. Tessa Valen sat quietly beside the ship's mechanic Orin as they examined a torn suit seam. "Your stitch is crooked," Orin teased gently. "It holds," she replied with a faint smile. "That's what matters." Across the table, her husband Bram watched the crew with wary eyes. "Your people live dangerously." Orin shrugged. "Danger pays better. And costs more," Bram replied. Orin paused, then chuckled. "Fair." The laughter felt strange, too normal. Later that cycle, the crew gathered for their evening meal. Conversation flowed mostly lighthearted until Navigator Celis finally voiced what everyone had been thinking. "We're getting attached," she said carefully. Fork stilled. Yarrick set his tray down. "We're not adopting them. It doesn't feel like detention either," Celis countered. "They're civilians," Yarrick replied, "not criminals." "And after the handoff?" Celis asked. Yarrick met her gaze evenly. "Then they're free." Silence followed. Rin exhaled slowly. "You really think the buyers won't retaliate?" Yarrick stood. "That's my concern." Not yours. He left the room without another word. Alone in the observation deck, stars sliding past like distant embers, Yark finally allowed himself to hesitate. Too familiar. Too close. He clenched his fists. Iron bonds were forged under pressure, but they could shatter just as easily. And for the first time since taking the contract, Yark wasn't sure which outcome frightened him more. The lights dimmed across the training deck. Saren noticed it first, not because the lights went out all at once, but because they didn't. One by one, sections of the ship shifted into night cycle mode. That usually meant one thing: transit mode. They were close to their destination. Captain Hawley stood at the edge of the observation platform, arms folded behind his back, staring into the forward projection where stars stretched thin into pale lines. He hadn't spoken since the last exchange, and that alone unsettled the crew more than any alarm ever could. Cade finally broke the silence. "So," he said carefully, hands planted on the railing, "we gonna talk about why we're still babysitting civilians, or do I just pretend this job didn't change halfway through?" Myra didn't look at him. "You already know why," Cade scoffed. "Yeah, because the captain's got a soft spot." Hale turned slowly. The room went quiet instantly. "You want to test that assumption?" Hale asked, voice calm, even which made it worse. Cade raised both hands a little. "Wasn't a complaint, just adjustment." Hale studied him for a long moment before turning back to the stars. "They're not civilians," Hale said. "Not anymore." Saren's head snapped up. "Captain?" "They were leverage," Hale continued. "Property being moved quietly by people who didn't want questions. That makes them witnesses. And witnesses don't stay alive long in this sector." Myra's jaw tightened. "So what's the play?" Hale exhaled slowly. "We finished the job. Just not the way it was sold. Below decks, the detention bay felt less like a cell and more like a waiting room." Joran sat on the bench, armored jacket folded beside him, hands clasped tightly. Across from him, his sister Lysa paced in small circles, trying and failing to burn off energy inside the reinforced walls. "They won't tell us anything," she muttered. "That's never good. They don't have to," Joran replied. "You don't move this far, this quiet, unless someone wants you erased." Lysa stopped pacing. "You think they'll kill us?" Joran didn't answer immediately. "That depends," he said at last, "on whether we're still useful." The door hissed open. Captain Hale stepped inside alone. Lysa stiffened. Joran stood. Hale raised a hand. "At ease." "I'm not here to threaten you." "That's reassuring," Lysa said flatly. Hale actually smiled briefly, tiredly. "You were taken because your father refused to sell access codes to an orbital refinery," Hale said. "Those codes can reroute fuel traffic across 3 systems." Joran's eyes darkened. "They killed him anyway," Hale nodded once. "Yes." Silence settled between them. "Here's the part where this stops being simple," Hale continued. "Whoever hired us didn't want the codes. They wanted you gone before you could figure out why those codes mattered." Lysa swallowed. "You're saying this is bigger than money." "I'm saying," Hale corrected, "this is about control." He turned to leave, then paused. "If you want to survive," he added quietly, "you stay close to my crew." The first shot hit them 20 minutes later. No warning. No signal flare. 1 second, the ship slid clean through vacuum. The next, the hull screamed as plasma raked across its starboard quarter. "Contact!" Myra barked. "Multiple signatures." Saren shouted from sensors. "Fast movers! No transponders!" The ship lurched as Hale dropped them into an evasive roll. Cade grinned, despite himself. "Oh good, I was getting bored." Missiles bloomed across the tactical display like fireflies. "These aren't pirates," Myra said. "Too coordinated." Hale's fingers danced over the controls. "Correct. They're hunters." The first interceptor died in a flash of white as Cade's turret chewed through its core. The second slipped past, scoring the hull again. Below decks, Joran felt the impact through his boots. Lysa grabbed the wall. "They found us." "Yes," Joran said grimly. "And they're not here to negotiate." Back on the bridge, Saren's voice sharpened. "Captain boarding craft incoming." "They want prisoners." Hale's eyes hardened. "No," he said. "They want proof." He slammed a command into the console. "All hands," Hale announced over shipwide comms, voice cutting through the chaos. "We are no longer running." The ship's lights shifted from blue to red. Weapons charged. Crew strapped in. Hale leaned back in his chair, expression calm at last. "Let's remind them," he said quietly. Why Iron Bond is still flying.